We're at it again, Rob. We're at it again.
Yep.
Here we are. It's
Been going since early this morning.
Early this morning.
Yeah.
Brenden Martin here with Rob Browne, and no, we're not Buddy Martin. Buddy Martin is, as we say and have been saying for a long time in the radio industry, is on assignment tonight.
Special assignment.
Patrick Young stuff that's going on. He's going to probably call and report in at some point. But we have humbly stepped into the shoes of one Budrow Martin, who's hobnobbing up in Gainesville doing his thing. Tonight, our guests will be, I'm pretty sure, David Whitley of the Gainesville Sun, one of my favorite writers at the Gainesville Sun. He joins us. He covers the beat and all things good, Florida Gators football, and everything else in between. Sometimes he'll surprise you, as well as Lauren Meadows from GatorBaitMedia.com, if he gets a link from me. And all these things go well. Rob Browne from SEC Sideline Sports, seen on this very network. Yes, that's right, network. That's what we're building here. And it will all eventually house under our big SECU and all of our different shows and your one-stop shop for all SEC sports and news and notes and, some bad impersonations once in a while. So how can you help us out, you say? That's easy. Subscribe to this channel. How do you do that? Well, if you're on desktop, you'll see a little subscribe icon in the lower right-hand corner. You hover over that, it'll see a subscribe deal. Or during the show, we pop up a QR code, and you can grab it there. Where it'll take you to a link, and you subscribe for free to our YouTube channel. If you're watching on Facebook, thanks you for watching. You just go ahead and click the follow button and like the video there as well. So, Rob, that's how you do it. That's how you get started. As we say on your show every morning, get your pen and paper handy, because why? I forgot the rest of it. I just want to get to the pen and paper part.
We're going to put a lot of good information out there. We got David Whitley, great writer, on here. We're going to talk a lot about the Gators, the SEC, and House versus NCAA. Could be the end of the NCAA. I don't think it's even really up for debate. We'll talk about it. A lot to talk about.
And we might hear some of your interview with Paul Finebaum, which is a great get from
yesterday.
That was
fun last night. Yeah,
last night. Really good interview. And we'll announce when he's going to be on your show on Friday, I believe. Yeah. So all of that, lots going on. So stay with us. We'll be back in, as they said on the Love Connection, 2 and 2.
For Buddy Martin, call him up and tell him what you're thinking, but be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
And we say dilly dilly around here. Yes, we do. Hell yes, we do.
Dilly dilly.
Bad Budweiser commercial campaign that launched this entire Buddy Martin show.
I love that.
2017 at the airport in Ocala, Florida, where we scooped them all. Just me, Buddy, and an iPhone. Dilly dilly. Throw those out there. And our group in the Gator Nation Kingdom. Well, Rob, we don't have any of our guests checking in anyway, but you know what? That's okay, because you and I can pretty much fill it up for hours. And we have lots to talk about. We were discussing the topic du jour, a la NIL, what the hell is going on with college football and college sports. Tell the good people what you would read this afternoon.
Well, I want to first give credit to the writer, Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports college
Just
football
on your show.
national writer, was on the show last Thursday with us, and he writes a lot of really, really great stuff on college football. There's a lawsuit going to come to trial, and it's on the docket for January of 25. And it's an antitrust lawsuit. It's a class action complaint alleging the NCAA and the power conferences have conspired to suppress athletes' compensation. Such a settlement could cost universities across the country between $15 and $20 million each. House plaintiff attorney is Jeffrey Kessler. It claims college athletes are entitled to a share of television revenue as well as money from their likeness appearing in video games from the past. Goes on and on. Bottom line, if the case goes to the jury and the NCAA loses, the NCAA could be on the hook for at least $4.2 billion. Okay? That's a big-ass deal.
The front door.
Yeah. And that'll be the end of it because
that's the end.
That's the end. R.I.P. I like it here from Dan Bond. Love to meet this Dan Bond guy. I don't know.
I've never met him
He
either.
seems like a very smart guy. Audrey, how about a cold road soda?
Yeah. Hey, Audrey.
Yeah, Mildred.
Mildred.
Yeah. But Dan Bond must be from down in Immokalee or maybe
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas. Okay, Dallas. All right, Dallas, Texas. Well, smart guy.
And he writes, and by the way, he writes for the for GatorRateMedia.com all the time, covers gymnastics, does a great job.
That's right.
So he's not like somebody who's completely like not that anyone's a nobody, but he's in the family.
No, I saw him on your show last week. He's very smart, and he's right. But the NCAA conducts 91 national championships in men's and women's sports. Okay, college football is its own deal. Isn't it funny? What makes the grass grow is already on its own. So I don't see, again, I'm not a lawyer, but our sidelines barrister, Jack Turner, graduate at Alabama Law School, said colleges, there's no subpoena power from the NCAA. What they have to be concerned with is antitrust laws. And when they went to the Supreme Court about NIL and compensation for athletes, it was 9-0, 9-0. And they said, you cannot deny anyone the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But we're happy now because we got a great writer on here, knows a lot more about it than we do, David Whitley. Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing what he's got to say. But give credit to Dennis Dodd. That was on his website. I read that story at length the last couple of days.
Mr. Whitley, welcome to the program. I'm not Buddy.
You're not?
No, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn last night, I think. Actually,
with Rob?
No. Yeah, well, I'm the big spoon, and it's cold still, unseasonably. So you got to curl up, once in a while.
Well, I know you live pretty far north there in Ocala.
Oh yeah, it's north here, very north. Yeah, I'm freezing right now in my shorts.
Yeah,
I'm not wearing any underwear, so it's fine.
Mm-hmm. Well, don't stand up. That's all. On behalf of the audience, let me request nobody stand tonight.
No standing. Nobody's standing. Mm-hmm. That's okay. We've been doing round the clock podcasts around here, holding it down. I feel like we're doing like what was the famous they would do the dance offs and they dance forever, and then whoever dropped. Mm-hmm. And then who was the famous host of all those? I can't think of his name. He's not the comedian from the Rat Pack. Come on.
Fred Astaire.
Jerry Lewis.
Jerry
Lee Lewis. But he'd do those 24-hour deals. Mm-hmm. You always see him on there. That's what I feel like right now. Because Buddy's a slave driver.
Mm-hmm.
And he's out in Gainesville partying, probably.
Yes, so you would be his Martin to and he's Jerry Lewis. They sort of had a split there at the end. I hope you guys don't, because y'all this is blood we're talking about, not water. Blood is thicker than water.
I've got myself a new Huckleberry in Ron Browne, so I don't know. he's got to watch it. Enough about. Let's undigress ourselves to, if that's even a thing. How. And we'll just go right into Florida Gator football because it's the title of the show, and you seem to know a lot about that topic. How was your assessment? I don't want to go crazy with it. And Rob, I know you've got some questions, but how's your assessment of the spring? And let's more of do you think it's really okay for Billy to not have an offensive coordinator? Is it something that, after going through spring, you think it's going to be an issue? What are your thoughts there?
I don't think it is the end of the world, which I think a lot of people were thinking, at the end of last season, that it was a no-brainer. That you were hearing things that he had promised recruits who were worried about these things and worried about the offense. No, they're bringing in an offensive coordinator and stuff. So I don't think that was the case, because if they were, maybe some recruits would have headed for the portal by now, because it's sort of like, he has and he hasn't, because he elevated, and I'm drawing a blank now because I've been divorced from spring practice since the orange and blue game, and moved on to the baseball team, which and don't ask me about that, because there's
you want to talk about that? I mean, we can talk about that.
Yeah. But anyway, he promoted. Give me the name. The Russ Callaway, I think. Yeah.
Oh, Callaway.
Yeah, and to his co-offensive. I don't know what kind of title he has, but titles are. You can name him, King Excelsior of offense right now, and it doesn't matter. But and it's sort of ill-defined what their roles would be, but it wasn't officially said. All right, he is your new offensive coordinator, or who will be making the play calls and all that. I mean, you can sense that Billy, if he could put a bumper sticker on his car saying, "I will give up offensive calling plays when they remove the playbook from my cold, dead fingers," that's what he would have. And if you could take a dispassionate look at things, the offense did get better last year. And by the end, they were averaging 30 points a game, thereabouts. And so it could always be better, but it wasn't the problem. So I think saying that, oh, good God, Billy obviously doesn't know what he's doing on offense is a bit overstating it. And you haven't heard that much of a backlash. Like if he'd have said in November, I'm going to keep calling plays and be offensive coordinator, they would have been, marching him off the plank and saying jump. Now it's sort of been like a between him quasi promoting Russ Callaway to help deal with things and other things. It just sort of got lost in things. So I don't think that it's that big of an issue. Now, if they go out there and they're averaging 3.2 points in September, it'll be a big deal. But I think that if they do what they did last year, that people won't be calling that they've got to do something about the offensive coordinator, and Billy screwed up by doing it again. As always, we shall see. But overall take on spring practice, they got done what they needed to do, which was mainly get through without any huge injuries. Got the young guys, they look good, but I sort of hate drawing any conclusions about any spring, because you're going against the same. It's inter squad stuff, and they can look great, and you really don't know. But just the vibe you get is positive, which is good, because you'd hate for the come away. If you can't have a positive vibe in April, you're not going to certainly going to have a positive vibe in September. The veterans, the older guys they bought in, especially like at safety and on the offensive line, they seem to like what they saw on them, and they look pretty good. Of course, I'm 5 minutes into this and haven't mentioned the word, and please genufic, DJ Lagway.
Yeah, Mr. Lagway.
Yes. Yeah. He looks as good as Bill, but also it should be Bill that he's not ready yet. And so this is definitely Mertz's team, and I think they've got it. The quarterback situation is in pretty good hands as long as Mertz stays healthy and they can bring Lagway along at a comfortable pace. I think it's definitely a better team than it was. It will be a better team than last year. I would, if I give it a percentage, I'd say it could be 25% better, but that doesn't necessarily mean 25% more wins is the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, David, look what Tennessee did. After Phil Fulmer was forced out, they spent 14 years wandering around between double-digit win seasons. It was 2022. They went 11-2. That long. I live in Memphis. My wife's cousin, like her brother, has 10 season tickets in Knoxville, the biggest tailgate up there. I mean, this is a guy that will, do whatever it takes to run his family out through the tee at the beginning of a game. He is as orange as it gets. He said, 4 or 5 years ago, I couldn't give the tickets away. But changing coaches so frequently, this is just my view on Florida. Again, there's not a school in the conference that's better positioned. You can talk about Texas all you want, but there's 13 Division I schools in that one state. Everybody, but I just think Florida has the best athletes historically because of the sand. Those kids run in the sand. The track and field programs are great. That stuff might not be a big deal, but track and field in the state of Florida, how many national championships have the Gators won the last 5-10 years? 13, 14? I mean, I think that's a big reason for it. But I watched video of DJ Lagway, his release. I mean, talk about that. I know Joe Milton had a strong arm too, but Lagway is scary athletically.
Yeah. Well, I passed him in a hall once, and we're not allowed to talk to freshmen, even though I guess you can say hello in an informal way as you pass.
Yeah, there'll be some
paperwork. You don't lose your credentials, and
we'll call you.
Yeah, and you look at this guy and go, this guy must be a middle linebacker.
Okay,
6'4", and I mean he's a legit 245, I would say. And you're right, that arm it's a
scary.
It's a howitzer. And it's all there, and it's just how quickly can he become a college quarterback up here?
Yeah,
and it's getting there, But these things, this is the proverbial process, and I think he moved along pretty well in the spring. I mean, he looked good in in the spring game, such as it was. I mean, they weren't hitting and all that, but he wasn't staring down receivers the whole time. I mean, there was some of that. And it's just trial and error. He's going to make those mistakes. Every young quarterback does, and you have to live with him as he matures. But with Mertz there, that's your great security blanket. You don't need him in there right now, and you can just pick your spots and let him mature. And I think, after they won the national championship, I guess in 2006, and it was the Chris Lee team really, and Tebow would come in for the cameo appearances and the jump pass and you could see the potential and all that. And that next morning at the press conference, they won it. One of the first things out of Urban's mouth was, "No, now this is Tim Tebow's team." Because he knew what he had.
Yeah, we asked him that question.
Trying to move on, but there was no need to rush things back then. Of course, it also helped that he had that national championship caliber team surrounding him. I mean, certainly Mertz doesn't have that surrounding him this year, but I think that after this season is done, be it the morning after press conference, after the the Poulan Weed Eater Bowl, assuming or wherever they go, that Billy will comfortably get them and say, now this is DJ Lagway's team, and away we go.
Well, yeah, I that's much of what everyone's been saying. I think we asked Urban that question actually about. I guess this was at the end of the football season. It was January, and we were talking to him about Buddy and I were talking to him. I said, "Well, how did you deal with that? You've got Tebow coming in, and you sort of promise them, the sun or the moon, maybe if you can kind of prove yourself a little bit." But he goes, "Look, you got to play him," and that's exactly what exactly what you said, which is you come in for the jump pass and all that other stuff in between, and you get some of that glory, and then the heavy lifting goes to the other guy. But I know people. I heard somebody said Graham Mertz for Heisman.
Right.
So hey, who am I to say?
Yeah. If I had $10 to throw away. I mean,
to throw away.
There are crazier bets out there. I'd give it about a 200 to 1 shot. But hey, that'd be a nice payoff.
Well, I guess the last question with that is that has the offensive line gotten better?
Right. Well, that's just it. I mean, that's the key.
That's
we don't know. We thought last year that a lot of those things had been addressed through the portal and guys coming back, and it turned out to be. We turned out, boy, were we wrong about some of that.
We got a whole press conference about everyone's size.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're big. They're big.
They're big.
Yeah. Hey, everybody got
pythons.
Yeah. You go to a 5A school in Florida. They're big. Their offensive line is. They're all big these days. You can't really tell anything by size. Although now the buzzword is length. It's not just height. It's
That's
more
length.
ultimately-
Yeah.
and
Wingspan.
Yeah, wingspan.
Yeah.
Like they're all, these are the Wright brothers coming in. We got to get that
Condors.
I think earlier this about 2 months ago, I think I was reading and I was just telling Rob this. I said first thing Oklahoma did when they got in the SEC is they went to work on going to find bigger guys up front because they knew that was the first thing that you got to think about when you're playing in the conference. They knew they were not big enough up front. And, I think that's going to be, it is every year. It's not, we say it every year, like it's some sort of like genius thing. It's just, it's not like, if you don't have a great defensive line, you don't have a great defense in the SEC, you're not going to win the SEC. Right now, we're definitely going to win this 4,000 team playoff. Hey, by the way, I'm going to bring in this guy, Lauren Meadows, because he's been patient and waiting in the wings. Mr. Meadows, welcome to the show.
What's happening?
What's happening, man?
How you guys doing?
You're familiar with Mr. Rob Browne and David Whitley.
Yes, sir. How you guys doing?
Where have you been? Like,
what's that?
You're always going somewhere. Where have you been?
I'm
in Thailand.
I'm in the cut right now. I'm pretty settled right now for a couple weeks. So just kind of hanging out, just seeing. It's kind of a downtime for Florida football in some ways. A lot of guesstimating and things like that. But got a big weekend for softball this weekend. Big series for the softball team, and track team will be hosting SEC outdoors the week after that, and still got some high hopes for baseball that they'll turn it around. So it's one of those things where it's always interesting because a lot of the focus then turns back to summer recruiting and things like that, which I continue to emphasize is not nearly as important as it was 3 years ago with the transfer portal, things like that. Yeah. But you may also see the straggler of a transfer or two come in as I think Florida's down to exactly 85 scholarships now. And I still look for them to maybe lose a couple more as things kind of pan out, maybe when grades come out and things like that here in another week. So, but it's kind of interesting time right now. You just kind of, I owe your dad an article here soon. And my next article will be the 7 reasons for 7 wins. So that's kind of where I'm going. It was in the last 2 years. It was 8 reasons for 8 wins, and that didn't happen. So I'm gonna go 7 reasons for 7 wins.
No, I can't do it again, Lauren. I can't do it again, Lauren.
Well, it's just one of those things where
if I go to Utah again, if I have another Utah.
Right. I feel you and I shared each other's pain over Raising Cane's that night after the Utah game. But I think the big thing is. This is a team that's equipped, and I've said on many occasions, they probably were, even though they were historically bad on defense, still had the opportunity to win 8 to 9 games the last 2 years, despite, and, I think 7's a reachable and almost a necessary goal for the Gators this year.
Well, I like the fact that you have 7, but at this pace, you're going to be writing 1 reason for 1 win in the 2029 season. It'd be an easy article to write.
If we get to that point, my goodness, I don't know if I can. I might just have to just go back to my day job, full, really hitting that hard. Because man, I mean, you never thought that selling pharmaceuticals and medical devices would be a little bit more agreeable than rooting for the Gators sometime or covering the Gators per se. So it's interesting right now. I think I've probably, if you consider myself a media, I think I've been tough as anybody on Coach Napier about a lot of different things. And, there's always something, but, literally hope springs eternal, as they say. And, so here we are.
Wait till next year.
What's that now?
Yeah, wait till
the official term around here is wait till next year.
Yeah. Well, that's always been. I think that's historically has historically worked for Florida, but I think at this point, when you got Oklahoma and Texas coming into the league, and all eyes are going to be on all of the happenings in the SEC particularly when it comes to football, and I think that the natives are kind of 50-50. I'm not going to say they're restless yet, but this is a program that's got to go out and look a lot better on the field. I mean, I've always thought that, a lot of things have been said about Coach Napier and what he's capable of, but, the proof is in the pudding. And, we can all agree that the on-the-field product has been less than appealing. I mean, it just has. And anybody that knows football and knows X and O's, there's a lot of head scratchers. Obviously, I'll give him the benefit, the fact that the Gators only have one person drafted in this year's draft, that maybe the cupboard was a little bit more bare than we thought. And obviously, losing guys like Tyron Hopper, who I can't for the life of me believe that we let him get out the door, and then he goes and becomes a 3rd round draft pick, at linebacker and things like that. We really could have used some of those folks. But at this point, like I said, it's time now. And week in, week out, it's got to look organized. It's got to look, it's got to look like something. And then they got to buckle up and play a physical brand of football, because that's what this conference is about. And for 2 years, it's kind of looked like they've been pushed around a little bit. And, speaking in NFL draft, every offensive player that was drafted that was in the SEC, they showed their highlights against Florida. If you guys noticed that.
Oh, so, yeah. Florida made the offensive guys a lot of money.
Yeah. So that's where we're at right now. And, I think that, we could go back to, like I said, football is kind of put to bed for a minute and a lot of speculation. But, I would encourage Gator fans to, kind of, hitch their wagon to a fairly decent softball team, a baseball team with potential, and, the historically greatest track program the SEC has ever seen, and just go out, get some sun, relax, and enjoy those sports.
I mean, thanks, Lauren.
I got a question for all of y'all.
A lot. Thank you.
Name me the 5.
I'm just going to drink.
Lauren and David and Brenden, name me why can't the state of Florida produce more top-notch quarterbacks? I mean, in a given year, out of 133 Division I schools, I bet you there are 20 or 25 of them around the country from Texas. I mean, Lagway's a Texas kid, but I'm just curious because I really believe this goes way back. There was a kid from Pensacola named Chuck Clanton that played at Auburn, and he said all he did as a kid was run on the beach and run up sand dunes. I mean, that builds calf muscles.
You keep thinking Florida is like Pensacola because that's where you've been. Okay. That is not Florida, dude. There's no sand in Gainesville, Alabama. Bro. No.
I know, but the state of Florida, you've got a lot
90 miles either direction.
I've been all over it, but I'm just saying the track programs. Lauren, you talked about it, and David, but give me your 5 best Florida high school quarterbacks just in the last decade and how they turned out, because that's if they could produce them like they do every other kind of athlete, we wouldn't talk about Texas, I don't think, as much.
Mm-hmm. 5 best high school QBs from Florida. I'm not exactly an expert in that thing. First guy that jumps in mind is Carson Beck right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Top pick in the NFL draft coming up. I don't know if Lamar Jackson, he might make the 10-year cutoff.
But
it's funny. He had to go to Louisville to show he could play quarterback.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These kids have left the state. It's just, I just don't understand how, if you're a Florida kid, why you would not go to the University of Florida. I mean, it's a public Ivy. That's what it is. That's the perception.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think when you talk about, I mean, you throw out Carson Beck and, like you said, Lamar Jackson, and I think if we really took, I mean, I think Florida's got Georgia's got 3 Florida quarterbacks on their roster, I think, right now. And I mean, I think,
yeah.
Well, he's, and I mean, the problem is, I think too, and I may make, man, I probably shouldn't say this, but
yes, you should.
What I found is too is that the Florida high school football product is built a lot on athleticism and not schemes, so to speak. So what I mean by that is what I think a lot of the Florida quarterbacks, a lot of them tend to then end up being receivers or DBs or safeties or running backs at other schools because they're so athletic. You don't see, like I mean, I want a prominent high school in Gainesville. I won't say the name, but I was actually kind of surprised at the rudimentary type of offense that they were running for a school that was on their way to a state title. And you don't see a route tree. You don't see, on 3rd and 7, you don't see curl flat, dig over the middle. The concepts that and maybe you don't have to, right? Maybe I mean, but when you talk about that kind of thing, I think that's where you may see a little bit of that fall by the wayside. But then David's counterpoint is the fact that, like I said, I think there's 3 Florida prep quarterbacks at the University of Georgia right now. So maybe a bigger question is, what can Florida do to maybe keep that talent in state? Maybe would be a better question. Or, is the evaluation process, because I guess I'm interested to see if Lagway wouldn't have been all in basically throughout this whole recruiting process, who would the Gators have turned to as a number 2? And one regard, there's the transfer portal, which I think we hit a home run at quarterback there. I'm a big fan of Mertz and obviously Lagway, but who was the second man out the gate if Lagway would have at some point said, "Hey, I'm gonna go over to Texas A&M," or I'm gonna be, whatever. And so it's interesting to see. But I know that I mean, I think it's a mix of things, but I think the bigger question may be, how do we keep that talent here in the state of Florida?
Yeah.
Well,
and it's not, the whole state's not a beach. I understand that. I followed Florida high school football for a long time, but I think y'all both would agree the dreadful 0-10-1 season, 1979, the first year of Charlie Pell. The next year they went 8-4. I think they beat Maryland 23-22 in the Tangerine Bowl, what they called it then. Of the 22 starters for the Gators, 11 of them were high school quarterbacks. That tells you right there. I mean, that's Wayne Peace was out of Winter Haven, I think, on that team. But I don't know. I just look at the state of Florida, and there's just so much talent down there. I don't know how a kid in Florida wouldn't go to Gainesville. It's tough to get them out of there. I know that.
Well, I have one kind of thing that I think matters is that I think Florida has progressively, the University of Florida has progressively over the years stopped letting in legacy. And I think, and I think that has been, and I think we're seeing some of that fall out now because it's been a minute and I've heard enough about it over the years. And I think that you stop breaking that fan base. You don't pass that down. My brother wore that Gator shirt. That was badass. I'm going to get, now it's like, I ain't going to Florida. Like, that's not cool. Like, my brother was, and look, and Rob, to answer your question, I mean, I know tons of Knowles fans, and I'm in Gator country. That runs deep around here. And then you got Miami fans, and there's plenty of UCF fans, not as much, but you have enough of that. So we even discussed at one point doing a whole website just about Florida football as a whole, because just in those teams alone, you have a lot of choice, and it all comes down to obviously proximity. Are you South Florida? Are you Central Florida? Are you North Florida? And that, and I think Central Florida gets, a lot of the, those teams. But at the end of the day, if you're from Florida, Gainesville ain't all that sexy. You know what I mean? Like, if you're from here, you're not like, oh, I can't wait to go to Gainesville. Like, that's not what you're saying when you're like from Tampa. Like it's not. And oh, by the way, UCF, don't watch out for them Bulls. They're building a $300 billion, I guess it's like $300 million or something like that. Brand new stadium. Yeah. So and that fan base has been growing like crazy, and they got a lot of fans just sitting there waiting because they're just kind of drifting over here. So the state is getting more divided out, and I think we'll see more of that as programs are right, especially with the NIL, because now you can pay to play. So anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's sort of how I see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, the more, you look at, I mean, all the major universities now pretty much have football.
Yeah.
So, the talent is dispersed a little bit more, and there's a lot of opportunities. I mean, I'm obviously from Ohio, and there's really only one big dog in the entire state.
Right.
And if a high school kid gets
Bowling Green,
yeah, Bowling Green,
Cincinnati,
Cincinnati, and if an Ohio guy gets an offer from Ohio State, I mean, 90% of the time he's going to Ohio State. I mean, if he ends up at Penn State or Michigan, he's either from the Toledo area or around that way, or it's almost like a legacy type of deal. I mean, so I think that just there's so many opportunities. And yeah, I mean, at US Stadium, I mean, the one thing USF has done a nice job of, and I know some of you guys have been there, they've like tied all their complexes together. So they're all kind of, I think they're going to do that with the football too, whereas like you'll be able to, from the football stadium, look over into baseball and the softball, and done that. So, I think that's going to be a really nice facility once they get it on campus and that kind of thing. So it's going to be interesting. I mean, with everything going on, I think that just, Florida's kind of at a crossroads with a lot of things. I think that initially the messaging for the NIL was not very good, and I think a lot of people's unhappiness with the admissions for in-state kids is kind of filtered over into that. So a lot of people tie NIL to admissions, which is not linked, but people have their own opinions. And so I think that, living here in Gainesville for the last, 3 years, I've kind of learned that there's a lot of, the messaging has to really change, at the University of Florida to kind of get that back. And I agree with Brenden. I mean, legacies are key. And I think that, to really get the brand back, they got to get the Florida back into the University of Florida.
Absolutely agree. And guys, I don't want y'all thinking I'm not saying historically. I was just asking the last 10 years because, I mean, I think about Reggie Slack at Auburn from Milton. Of course, that's L.A. Y'all don't consider that Florida. But David,
No.
David, I mean, just the state, that's exactly – Alabama, University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa is less than 40% in-state now. They're pissing off so many in-state people, legacies.
Yeah.
And they're going to rue the day they did that, David Whitley. And if you're a Florida kid, try fundraising when they tell you no. Yeah.
Yeah, because they pointed to the success of the football program there and how that has raised Alabama's stature nationally and how they were getting so many more applications to come there. So it worked in a way because, I mean, you mentioned Alabama. Everybody knows University of Alabama. That's where safe. That's that great football team. I want to go there, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
But it is, hollowed out the Alabama kids, even though I still think when it comes down to the football player kids that they're going to get. I don't think that it's going to be that big of an issue that you're not a legacy. I'm not letting you in. If you're a 5-star or a 4-star, you're getting you're going to go where you want to go. I think in the last 10 years also they've lost just in general that more like the last 15. It's just been the Sabanization of recruiting in Florida, and that in the old days if you're a Florida kid, you basically were down to the big three: Florida, Florida State or Miami, and there'd be a couple of out of state schools, and they would always come in and pluck somebody, a few big names. But basically, I would say the bulk of the Florida talent went to the top three, but now it's I don't know what the stats are, but just check out IMG and how many guys have gone elsewhere and not the Florida schools. Yeah. Of course, a lot of those guys aren't Florida kids. They just come here and play, to play football for the last 2 years of their high school. But in general, I think, they've lost. It's just much more accepted to go out of state, and people, the Georgias and Texases and LSUs and everybody, they just come in and raid the place a lot more successfully than they used to. And as they got better the last 10 years, the big three got worse. Miami, has been wandering the desert for the longest time, for 20 years really, and certainly since Florida hadn't really been gangbusters the last dozen years, except for a couple of spurts, and FSU, the last 10 years historically until last year was really down, and other schools took advantage of that. Now that certainly FSU's proven it's on the upswing. Jury's still out on Miami and Florida, but you'll probably see more kids thinking, all right, it's just more track, because bottom line, a lot of this, they want to go somewhere that you're going to win, and where you're not worried your coach is going to be out the door in 6 months. And so if these programs can establish that stability, but the old days of the glory days of the 80s and 90s, where Howard Schnellberger came in and said, "I'm drawing a line at Miami-Dade, and everything south is Miami's," and he drew that line, and and kids, and it's true. If you could just keep everybody in Dade and Broward County going to Miami, you've got a national championship contender, at least now a playoff contender every year. So it's just, like Lauren said, it's a combination of factors that have played into it.
I'm sharing the screen right now that came out yesterday. Forbes names University of Florida new Ivy for its output of outstanding graduates. So
I was afraid it's for the Hamas protest.
Oh my God!
Okay, never mind.
Wow,
that's Columbia. Juan Valdez.
Dang.
I'm gonna throw this.
That's what I'm talking about. It's a slow news cycle right now.
Let me I'm gonna throw a stat at you. I'm an idiot savant, my dad calls me. But from 1983 to 2013, 30-year period, the state of Florida produced 5 national championships in Miami, 3 in Florida State, and 3 in Gainesville, and multiple runner-up. Where the Gators lost in '95. I won big on that game. I was like, I don't care. Nebraska's defensive front will blow them up. When Jarquez Green out of Fort Valley, Georgia, got crunched like an accordion, that just changed it. But the next year, the Gators came back and won it all. So really, if you count the number of times Miami, Florida State, and Florida have played for the national championship in that 30-year period, I bet it was 16 or 17.
Oh, yeah.
May have been more than that. That's the most dominant run by a state in the history of college football. There's nothing even close.
No.
Texas from 1970 with 30 million people that we know of in the state of Texas. I hadn't checked the turnstiles lately on the Rio Grande, but bottom line, the state of Texas from 1970 has produced 1 national championship since 1970. That was Texas in 2005. State of Florida in that 30-year period did 11. Had to have been 6 or 7 runner-ups. Now, Lauren, you're from Ohio. State of Ohio, the Big Ten, since 1970 it's 3.5. Ohio State in 2002, a day after the game, they changed that call. The game was over for about an hour. Okay, and then in 2014 when they pounded Oregon, and then Michigan in '97. I know Michigan won in '97. They split it with Nebraska, and then Michigan won it outright this year. So that's 3.5, 3.5. SEC in that same period is 20. But nobody's at Florida, 89 to 09. 20-year period, Florida's the winningest program in all of college football. So I am myopically focused on how they do that as an Auburn man, but God, we should be playing Florida every single year because we like getting in the papers and being in the forefront down there. And that was just a great rivalry anyway. That was a phenomenal rivalry. Closest
school to Gainesville. I mean,
closest school to the state line of Florida.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, I don't, that didn't make sense to me as an Ohio kid when they did the whole, I was like, Auburn, Florida, obviously. But, I mean, I think that, I mean, it's just different now, man. Things are the mass communication, mass transit. I mean, you got, you talk about Florida kids now, Ohio State's starting to pull Florida kids. There's like 15 nonstop flights from Orlando to Columbus now and things like that. I mean, it's just it just opens up a different world out there. And I think that, what we know, I mean, and I've said it before, the world that we know it, all of us, the ages we are, that we grew up on, that's never coming back.
No,
I mean,
hell no. It's already gone.
The new with the NIL and the transfer portal. I mean, like I said, I hope that they keep the rules pretty much the same, 53 1/3 wide and 100 yards long and 11 on 11, because they start messing with that, it really will go sideways.
You're just going out. You're going right to pickleball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just the purity, I think, people just have to hold on to the fact that when they kick off, and the heads get to cracking, at least for that 2 or 3 hours, it's football. And then after the game, we talk about all the NIL and all that transfer. But for those 2 to 3 hours, it is still football.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you got to kind of hang your hat on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it really does just come down to talent. And that the greatest real gauge of that is the draft.
Yeah,
who
is
got drafted. And I was thinking, Florida had one guy. I don't know how many Miami had, but I was thinking back to now this goes really the 87 FSU Miami game, where they ended up with, I think it was 57 guys got drafted from that game. And there were the Michael Irvins on the up, but all the way down. And I mean, it's just mind-boggling the talent that was, and that was something of an anomaly, but not that much. I mean, they were always, top, gosh, Miami and FSU, they were just factories.
Yeah.
And you just look at what's happened in the last few years. I don't know how many Miami got drafted this year. It couldn't have been much. I mean, FSU had a good year, but they have flipped the script there. I think we can say, successfully on that. Now it's up to Florida and Miami to get on the stick. But we're, as you said, we're never going to see 57 guys draft. If we are, 27 will be at other schools next year on better NIL deals.
Yeah,
no doubt.
And like what y'all are saying about the state of Florida, Miami. Tommy Tuberville used to be on my show a lot before he became a senator, and he said, Rob, I was there 86 to 93. Our scrimmages, you'd have Benny Blades, Alonzo Highsmith, Michael Irvin. He said our scrimmages were tougher than most of our games. But would y'all say it's fair? The athletes are so damn good in Florida. Miami started it, Florida State and Florida did. Their defensive players were faster than most every one of their opponents' offensive skill players. That's what changed. I remember hearing about Tommy Tuberville from a friend of mine, our family that refereed for 33 years, big Southern independent games, Miami, Florida State, Auburn, Penn State, Alabama. And I tell you, he was such an honorable man. I saw him in a game one time. I was on the sidelines working for CBS in college. He didn't even acknowledge me. And he came up afterwards. He said, that's the way it has to be. I can't. Which I respected. I went to the 88 Miami, Florida State game, unfinished business down there. Yeah. That was awesome. But I think about the Gators when Steve Spurrier came in, hey, since they're going to give Reggie Bush back his Heisman, I'm going to throw this out there for y'all. Can they give the Gators the 1990 SEC championship and the 1984 SEC championship that was voided? I mean, Charlie Pell got blamed for everything but German measles. And that guy, what he did was open up Gator fundraising like it had never been done before. Y'all have introduced me to his widow, Ward Pell. He's one of the best guests I've ever had on the show. One of the kindest, coolest. She said, Charlie went down there and sat on the front porch with a man named Ben Hill Griffin. Y'all know him. He is Florida. And ate swamp cabbage for 3 hours and talked about football for 5 minutes, but walked away with the biggest check at that time ever written for Gator athletics. I mean, the more you know about your history, your traditions, and your heroes, the harder you will fight to preserve it and keep it. That's the Marine ethos of the Marine Corps.
Well, I mean, one of the things is a Sprite can. That was one of the allegations is one of the coaches bought a kid a Sprite. I mean, so yeah. I mean, I think that, yeah, at least the 84 team. And yeah, I mean, I think so. I think a lot of those things, I mean, obviously then you got to take SMU off the death penalty, maybe, I don't know, or we'll see. But I mean, I think that's for some of those minor infractions, particularly with Florida, I mean, I would like to see them, and I do like how Coach Spurrier always kind of throws the 1990 team in front of the NCAA, kind of as a team that kind of got cheated, out of that. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. I'm glad that Reggie Bush was able to get his Heisman back. I think that, that's there's a lot of degrees that go into that kind of thing when you kind of peeling off the layers of that. But yeah, I'm glad to see him get his Heisman back for sure.
Yeah.
I hate to be the fly in the ointment, but I thought it was pretty much a cop out, and caving into the whims of the modern era where, the basic thrust, if I understand it, was, well, everybody gets paid now.
Yeah.
So that makes it okay. But the rules were the rules in 2005 or, pre whatever. And, it's easy to draw the analogy. Well, all right. So, I got a speeding ticket for going 55, in 1984. Now that speed limit's 70, do I get my money back?
Correct. Yeah.
Just because things have changed now doesn't, there's, what is it called? Ex post facto law, where you can't go back and make and change the law in the Constitution to make something that somebody did criminally liable now. You can't make it a crime. And it's sort of versus, it's sort of like a pardon, but, usually, and this one, a pardon, because a pardon is when the person admits guilt, or, he's guilty. That's one thing about Bush. He's been defiant that he didn't do anything, and he sort of parses his words here. Saying, I never took any money, blah, blah, blah. Well, the whole thing was that his family got money, and
exactly
was in the rent-free, staying rent-free in the thing, and was getting travel expenses and all this kind of stuff. And so maybe he never got money. But
would you take because Manziel has admitted to taking money.
I think everybody, probably every Heisman winner up there, except Tebow, maybe took money along the way.
Right.
But we gave it to charity. So.
Yeah. And he would have given and donated it to the his Filipino hospital.
Yeah.
But the fact that the NCAA didn't catch everybody going 95 miles an hour doesn't mean that the one they caught should get away with it.
Right.
There's no doubt that they're a bunch of Keystone cops, and they were for years. And of all the NCAA and all the $100 handshakes, they may have caught 0.2% of them of what went on.
That's that.
Yeah. But the fact that everybody was getting away with it doesn't mean that, okay, now, it makes it okay. They got caught. Everybody, other people should have got caught, but they were dumb, for whatever, they were dumb enough to have to have Lloyd Lake, who was Reggie Bush's agent, come out and feel he got screwed and sort of turn state's evidence and saying, I was paying his family, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't just Bush. It was other, they got the whole USC thing. And, I'm sort of happy. It's just desserts because there was all that going on, but just from a, sort of an ethical standpoint, I think that, if you have values and principles, you shouldn't just say, okay, well, everybody was doing it. Because it's legal now, we should make it okay legal then. If you take it, for other things, it's, if Major League Baseball loses its mind and says, all right, PEDs are okay, then okay, or say the IOC does that, then all those. Heck, every medal Russia has taken away from the last 20 years will be returned to them. Just because it's okay now. So anyway, that's my pulpit.
But I think David, and Lauren made good points, and everybody here. My take on it is like David. Damn it, it was illegal then, and to sit there and use plausible deniability as your crutch. Anybody can say that. Well, I had no idea. Well, how do you think your parents got that $250,000 house or whatever? I hate that it happened, but what else are we going to go back and do with revisionist history? SMU, they're going to get triple national championships in the 80s with the Pony Express. Golly, I know.
Yeah, maybe that's the way the NCAA is going to try to get everyone to be back on their side again. We're like, we're going to give out a national champion. Remember, we didn't mean that. You guys won't.
Right. Well, my thing with the Heisman is it's an individual kind of award. And what I mean by that is if you want to vacate wins and things like that, but there's nothing in the Heisman Trust, right, that says, is there anything in the Heisman Trust that excludes you from any of that? And that's what I mean is the award was given as an individual award outside of the NCAA, outside of, I mean, it was given by a group of individuals who voted for sports writers and a group of individuals. So, everybody voted for Reggie Bush, things like that. There's no stipulation on it. And that's why I'm like giving back his Heisman. The rest of it, maybe, but
but the trust said that the reason they had him out was because of the NCAA violation, and they weren't going to give it back unless the NCAA changed its stance. But then they decided, well, the NCAA, it's steadfastly said we're not going to change our stance. So they just and they have the right to do it because they can, as you said, it's their rules. They can make it up. I mean, we always say, look, if there's a morals clause in any of this, the first guy you're going to go after is OJ. So
I was staying away from that, but I mean, we were all thinking,
Cue the Bronco.
Give me Reggie Bush as my cellmate long before OJ.
And that's the thing. Dennis Dodd, what he said on the show Thursday, he said he had talked with Reggie Bush about this, and what he said was, look, it didn't affect his performance on the field. And he said, you have to base it what happened on the field. So it's a diametrically opposing argument. Lauren Meadows makes a lot of damn good points. And I never agree with people. I don't go along to get along ever. I just say what I think. Lauren makes great. This is like a great court case. I mean, so do you, David. I mean, and Brenden is too.
It's so much for Brenden.
I remember the Heisman Trophy growing up. I can still remember as a kid watching when Pat Sullivan won it. It was a Thursday night award with John Ott from the Downtown Athletic Club. And they took out an envelope and said, one winner here. The winner is Pat Sullivan, Auburn. I'm like, Auburn? How do you spell that? But back then you won it on Thursday. The following week you were in New York at the Waldorf Astoria. And, it's a big deal. But think about Tim Tebow. I don't know Tim Tebow. Y'all do. Y'all have been around him. I've been at media days standing next to him. But I tell you what, one of my favorite writers, Ken Capps, who's on our show a lot, covers Texas and Football Writers Association of America. A couple of years ago in Atlanta, he was talking to Tim. He just went up to him and introduced himself. He said, man, I just got to tell you, I have so much respect for you because you stand your ground, what you believe in, your Christian faith, your morals, your core values. He goes, I'm just a big fan of yours. And Tim Tebow was so gracious and humble. I mean, look, he gets hit from everybody. Again, y'all are around him. I'm not. But the view from outside is this guy is kind of the Wally Cleaver of the Heisman Trophy winners. The best athlete, good-looking guy, but takes care and spends time with people, that maybe can't do a damn thing in the world for him. Is that a fair take on Tim Tebow? That's how I see it.
I see it the way everyone else does. I don't think anyone has insiders.
I don't think I have any insight that, but that's just my take on him.
Now, if it's an act, it is one of the greatest acts in the history of mankind.
Exactly.
First time I met him, it was in high school, and it's funny. It was at the Players Golf Championship on a Sunday, and he was early Sunday morning, like 7 a.m. He was given the devotional there, and he's a senior in high. It was a senior year in high school, so he was in Florida in first spring practice, but you could just see he's the same guy then as he was, now as he was then. I mean, and everything you hear, because believe me, for 20 years people have just been waiting to pounce on him. To yell hypocrite. Yeah, and there haven't been a scent of anything that he's stepped out of line. So I mean, he is if there were more Tim Tebows in the world, the world would be a much better place.
Well, I will tell you what I know about Tim Tebow is that I was a Nice Panther, and before old Tim Tebow rode through there, I wore number 15 in high school.
So that's why he chose the number.
So he probably chose my number.
Right.
All right. So there you go. But
isn't that in his Heisman acceptance speech?
What? Yeah. Well, yeah. He calls me B-Dog, but he says it fast. Okay. And he's like, whatever. And you don't really know his name, but I like him and I know. So it's real cool.
I think I heard somebody mention one of the greatest tight ends to come out of Nice. Was Brenden Martin.
Yeah, Brenden Martin.
I heard that before.
Yeah, they called me Coors Light back then because I was from Colorado and transferred in, and Dad went to school at our school. Went to work at Jacksonville Times Union, And he was doing the Terry Bradshaw NFL Today, where this little shiny Emmy came from. He's going to take back one day. I don't know. He may not.
I think we got a movie. We got a movie script that needs to turn into a movie. David, you're not old enough, or Lauren, none of us are. I mean, but to have written on the Skywriters tour. But that's a movie.
Yeah,
you know, when is the movie coming out? And I will say this too.
Tried.
Just Lauren and David, y'all cover Florida so well. I'm just curious, you know, putting a $600,000 preferred, endowed scholarship, a chair in the College of Journalism at Florida for an aspiring young sports writers. You know, we need more beat writers. That's the whole theme of SEC Sideline Sports Network and SECU. It's when I got Buddy Martin on my show a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago, I was like, man, I just landed an 800-pound marlin, you know? And I mean, it's just because he comes on and everybody's like, man, that guy's incredible. And I love watching. I watch the show now at night. I just got it bookmarked. But like you said, David, if that's the act, it's the best one. And you saw what the New York media did to Tim Tebow when he played for the Jets. They ought to be ashamed. They ought to put their lips over their head and swallow. That was sickening because he's a good guy.
Yeah, it's funny. And I went to a couple of those games when he was playing for the Jets. And he was the same team, just cordial, smiling, never said a bad word about anybody, And, I almost wonder, does he go home at night and have a voodoo doll of some reporter and just stick pins in just to get his frustration? I seriously doubt it.
He plugs himself into the wall.
Well, he was his predecessor was the guy from Fort Walton Beach, Danny Warfel.
That's right.
Yeah.
Remember what Bill Oliver said about him? Brother Bill from Epps, Alabama, over in the Black Belt, said he's the greatest high school quarterback he'd ever seen.
Right.
That guy. I mean, 5 years.
I mean,
5 years he stayed at Florida.
He played a whole half of football with a broken leg. I believe it was half of a football. Yeah, it was like almost a quarter with a broken leg. I only did that once. Get it?
Once is enough, isn't it, Lauren?
Once.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Lauren, where are you from in Ohio? What town?
I'm from Dayton, Ohio. So
you're from Dayton.
So I traded one into 75 for another. So so right off 75. Dayton, Ohio.
All right.
So okay. High school football. It's incredible. It's like the 5th most productive state in America. Florida's 2 or 3, Texas 1, California and Georgia's 4, and Alabama's 6. That's amazing.
Ohio is for the level of high school football and the way that they treat their athletes, the state championship games are at the Hall of Fame. It's a great setup. And no spring football. So that's
because it's cold.
No spring football up there?
That's the problem.
No spring football and no 7-on-7. You only play 7-on-7 with your high school team. You don't travel around.
Good. I like that
stuff. So they got some limits on some things, but they turn out. Matter of fact, Florida just offered a young man from the town I used to live in, as an edge rusher. So I might be doing some work to try to get him down here.
There you go.
See what you can do.
I like that.
Listen, it's time. I see it in Mr. Whitley's sparkle in his eyes over there that it is time for his milk and cookies. So we are going to say dilly dilly to you, sir, and thanks for always coming on. Always a pleasure to. You got anything coming out? You write about anything good or just a bunch of crap?
Actually, I had a nice talk with Micah Hanglow today. And checking in on how he's doing 6 weeks after that devastating injury and what's up.
Oh,
what's been going on with him.
Yeah. God.
How
is he doing, by the way? I mean,
he started rehab. He's doing well. He's walking already.
Good. Walking already. Yeah.
Yeah. He said he's got a cool looking scar. It says it's shaped like a lightning bolt.
Wow.
Well, he's Harry Potter. When does that drop?
Should be up Thursday morning on the website.
All right. Well, look for him. He's David Whitley with GainesvilleSun.com. GainesvilleSun.com. Is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Check him out. He's like literally everywhere. And he's our friend. Thanks, David. Thanks for coming on. Enjoy your milk and cookies.
Take care.
Good night to you. Yes. Lauren Meadows Thank you very much to Lauren Meadows. Check them out on GatorbaitMedia.com. Anything parting words?
Big series, big softball series with Texas A&M this weekend.
All right.
The Gators got an outside chance to win the SEC. They need to sweep Texas A&M, and Tennessee needs to lose 2 of 3 to Kentucky. So we'll see.
I'm glad you're going to be able to fill me into that. So,
yes,
Lauren
sir.
Meadows, you have a great time. Always a pleasure. Check them out on GatorbaitMedia.com. Wait, before you go, Mr. Browne, we're going to treat everybody on the way out of here tonight with your quick interview with Paul Finebaum. Why don't you set it up really fast? Just kind of tell us where you were, how this happened, and what we're about to look at.
Yeah, the Touchdown Club of Memphis Spring Speaker Series. Paul Finebaum is a Memphis native, and he was in town to speak to us. It was a great, huge crowd last night. Talked about what's going on in college football, and I got a few minutes afterwards to ask him some questions, and got some really good answers.
All right. Well, here it is. This is his interview last night. We're going to go out with this. It's a couple minutes long. We'll say goodbye to you, Rob Browne. And by the way, announcement, Paul Finebaum loved the interview so much, he's coming on your show on Friday.
Yeah.
Live.
Him and Tony Barnhart will be on there Friday.
Tony Barnhart.
Yeah.
From 9 a.m. Eastern, right here on this, where you're watching this show right here. It'll be here. You'll be able to. That's why you should like and subscribe. You'll get all those notifications. But good get today, and good job by you to get what's his name? Paul Finebaum. Too many podcasts. Paul Finebaum
gonna be fun. Thanks for having me on your show tonight, man.
Yeah, this is Buddy's show. I will see you in the morning. We'll say goodbye to you, and then we're just going to play this interview. Good night, everybody. Thank you, and as always, go Gators. This is Paul Finebaum. Let's make this thing work, and I press this button here.
Paul, your thoughts about private equity getting involved in the college football playoff with what Derek Dooley said. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that's just part of it, but I think ultimately private equity will be all over college football because it's, private equity goes where you can make money, and there's a lot of money to be made. I've talked to people that really believe the sport is vastly undervalued.
Another one, ESPN's taking that spot, iconic spot that CBS had. Who are the announcers going to be, and how much different do you expect it to be? What's your role going to be?
Well, I think the announcers are going to be the same. I mean, you still have the Fowler, Herb Street crew will do not always the prime game. My job's not going to really be any different. We'll still do the SEC morning show, but it's just from a day-to-day standpoint, it will be different to Texas and Oklahoma. And on July 1st, when it becomes official, we'll be out in Austin one day and Norman the next.
What are your thoughts, too, about Oklahoma and Texas coming in? Is it true there's going to be a billboard on I-20 that's all orange and white? Texas, in the bottom right-hand corner, welcomes the SEC. You think it's going to be that
having been to both places recently, there's tremendous excitement. I think it's one of the most exciting things that's ever happened to the SEC.
And as far as the rest of the league right now, the Ole Miss factor. They have not been the hunted before. They've always been hunting. Kind of talk about that. Lane Kiffin was the one coach who really challenged Nick Saban to change, saying he wanted to beat him so badly. I think people are going to miss Nick Saban more than they realize. A lot of people may want him gone.
Yeah, no, listen, he's obviously the most important coach in the league since Bear Bryant, and maybe the greatest coach of all time. So I don't say that really with much doubt. But yeah, he will, and he left at a high standard. It's not like the guy had 4 losing seasons. He almost made it to the national championship game.
One last one. As far as the SEC and the Big Ten at 65, do you see that happening soon? That we go to just 4 super conferences?
Yeah, we're definitely moving towards super conferences. But I think the real place to keep your eye on is the ACC. Can it hold together? If it can't, then it will happen a lot sooner than we think.